And today we'll be configuring the web application firewall on the F5 distributed cloud using the console. We'll first configure the load balancer, and then we'll add a web application firewall policy to it. We'll run a couple of quick tests, and then we will look at the analytics to compare the results. First, we will go to the console. For load balancer, we select Multi-Cloud App Connect. This is for the load balancer configuration. We'll go to Manage Load Balancers, HTTP Load Balancers, and add HTTP Load Balancer. We'll give it the load balancer a name. This has to be all in lowercase. Now we'll put in a domain name. This is the domain name that will be referenced for load balancing. This will be in the lab guide, the one that you will use if you're doing the F5 WAF web application firewall demo. We want to, in this case, for testing, we're just going to use the regular HTTP load balancer with port 80. And then we configure the origin pool. Origin pool is just a logical grouping of back-end web servers that you're going to be load balancing. So I'm going to add item. It's an origin pool. We'll now add one origin server. This will be the one that's in the lab guide. And we have our pool and a pool number. Make sure we're using, in this case, port 80. And hit continue. And so there's our origin pool. Hit apply. All right. So that's basically all there is for setting up the load balancer. Next, we'll add the web application firewall. First things is we'll go and enable the web application firewall. We'll add a new web application firewall policy. We'll turn the enforcement mode from monitoring to blocking. That way we can actually stop attacks. And we want to now do the security policy. There is a default set of attack policies that are built into a default group. We want to create a custom policy because we want to make a change to the default signature selection by accuracy. We want to change it from the high and medium to high, medium, and low. And each of those accuracy levels have to do with the number of false positives that are detected, the specificity of the policy signatures themselves. So there's various trade-offs for each of these settings by accuracy. We're going to use all three. And we'll hit continue, leaving everything else the same. Now we hit save and exit. And then we want to test this policy. So now we have the load balancer, we have the security policy in place, and now we'll go to the servers on the internet. Just to test that we can get there. And there we are. So we're able to get to the web server that we're load balancing. Actually, what we're doing today is just protecting with the web application firewall. I'm getting the responses. So now we want to test the policy, and then we'll take a look at the analytics to see what was captured. First, I'll run a cross-site scripting attack. And we're getting blocked. As we can see, the request was rejected. Take note of the support ID. It ends with A0DE1. All right, so remember that DE1, 0DE1. Now let's run another attack just so we can build up some records in the logging so we can get a good idea of what is recorded. We'll do a password cracking attack here. So we'll try to extract the password database. Put that up here. And this one similarly now is being blocked. Notice the different support ID. This one ends with D8A4. I'll run it again just to generate some more traffic here in the logs. All right, so each time that I run this attack, there's a new support ID that is used to identify this attack in the logging system. Let's run one more attack here. Let's do a SQL injection. This is the sort of typical one that you run on the back end database behind the web server we're protecting. Let's try this. And again, web application firewall is blocking this attack as well. And notice a different support ID each time that I execute this request. All right, so 1AE7 is the last one. So now let's take a look at the analytics. To do that, we want to go to Overview. First, we'll take a look at performance. All right, so this is dashboard for performance. We'll be looking at a specific load balancer. This is an overview dashboard. Notice the information that's recorded. And this data will eventually populate in a database. And notice we have our load balancer down at the bottom. The security policy is tied to the load balancer. So let's go into that load balancer. And this gives us a number of metrics to look at from a performance perspective, the end-to-end latency. And this data will populate over time. So it's not immediately that we will actually see the actual data. It takes time for it to sort of migrate into the logging and for the logging to normalize the data and make it available to the dashboard. There's a number of items here we can look at right away. So next, let's take a look at requests. We'll go over here and change the request to the last hour. There's in some initial testing I did, there's some more traffic in here. But we'll see in the last hour on the far right bar graph, there's some activity. And then you'll notice we can filter. And you might remember that request ID that we looked at. You can actually filter here on a specific request ID. The one that we just had was 1AE7, 1AE, and there it is there. We can then select that to be filtered, hit apply. And now we're just looking at that one request. So here it is here. First off, there is a line item here. Give some information. We can also click on the arrow to look at more details. So again, this is on the dashboard for the load balancer web application firewall, and we'll see that this was a load balancer. Here is the message ID of the last request. Actually, we need to give it a second here for the last request. It would be 6B1F. Let's see if we have the other one there. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the one that we filtered for. Sorry. So we filtered for one of them. We're looking at the filter that I put in, 6B1F. Again, the information for the performance. And then on the left, source and destination info, request response. The response code detail was blocked by the WAF. And again, we're looking at this primarily from this view, from a performance perspective. To actually see the security issue, we want to once again go over to App Firewall. Go to the security overview. Select the load balancer and look at security analytics. So now we're looking at the same requests, this time from a security perspective. So now, again, we have some of the same things. We can filter on a specific request. One of the other things I wanted to mention is on the forensic side. This is another top-level shorthand view of the most critical parts of this log. You can adjust what you have up here in the forensic side here by just hitting a little pencil, and then select what additional data that you want to show up in the forensics shorthand sort of dashboard, so to speak. Right, so that's just another way of quickly gathering information. Now let's pull one of the requests. So here is one request here. This was a block, again, similar information that we saw before, except this time from this web application firewall security analytics dashboard, we now can look specifically at the analytics for the attack. In this case, we're looking at the actual attack signatures that were tripped by a particular request. In this case, we have SQL injection type. The signatures that matched are 4. So each one of these played a role in tripping this particular alert. So you'll notice it gives you the attack type, the level of accuracy, matching information, state of the signature being enabled, along with other information on the far right, the actual requests, the actual parameters. So there's a host of information that's available to you now in the security analytics to test the web application firewall. All right, so that's a short story on setting up the web app firewall. The first thing you do is set up the load balancer, and then you attach a web application firewall policy to that load balancer. You run your test and confirm that everything's working as it should.